All right. First rule of this channel, we do not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So welcome to How the Sausage is Made, Week 9. CJ Stroud, 470 and 5 touchdowns. Wow. And he did it against the Buccaneers. I almost rolled out the Buccaneers against the Texans based off of what happened last week. And I'm glad I didn't, because that would hurt. Anyway, Dak Prescott, he does his thing. Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and then Josh Dobbs. If I do finish the re-rankings video for the fantasy trade deadline that's coming up, Josh Dobbs is going to be in there as like a low end starter, like high end streamer. And again, it's just because if he can get that nimbly bimbly in, it's not going to really matter how the sausage is made. He's just going to be able to get you there most of your weeks. I don't think anybody rolled him out this week because, who would have thought that he would have played based off the fact that he wasn't starting. But you see that, outside of week 1 and, week 6, week 7, I mean, he's going to be able to get you to compete with like some of the guys that were a lot of draft capital was spent on. And if you don't have someone like CJ Stroud or Dak Prescott that were going outside of those premium ranges, you're going to have to figure out a way to go compete with those guys. And he's probably going to be able to do it, especially like maybe a slight upgrade to the weapons in Minnesota, especially like Justin Jefferson looking like he might be coming back. And I think they're 5-3 now. So they're definitely, they're 5-4. So they're definitely in the playoff hunt this year. And definitely probably also an upgrade in coaching there with O'Connell in Minnesota. So that's something to be paying attention to going forward. I'm probably going to have to start transitioning a little bit. There's going to be less waiver news, and it's more trying to figure out like who the right kickers are. Like one league, I had the Eagles kicker and the Houston defense, and they got me a grand total of like 4 points, and I'm probably going to lose that week. But in my other league, I had the Raiders defense and Koo, the kicker for the Falcons, and I'm probably going to win that because that was like 38 points versus 4 points. So like those things end up being very important if you run kickers and defenses in your leagues. So picking those guys up is going to be easier because I don't even know who's going to be the top waiver odds this week that weren't predictive ahead of time. Like everybody should be on the rosters almost at this point. So moving forward, Rachaad White, we're going to talk a lot about him probably in the after waivers video. If you can go trade for him, especially after this week, there's going to be very few guys that are going to get in the range of those 20 carries and 4 receptions. He may not hit those 20 carries again, but the receptions, that's kind of what you were paying for. And the difference between someone like him and those upper tier backs, like, an ETN or somebody else like CMC, is that he's going to have less opportunity to score touchdowns. His 2 touchdowns came on 1-yard touchdowns. So when we look at like a Kyron Williams, the only thing that we care about is, the rushing work or the goal line work and the red zone work and the design passing work. And essentially what you have with Rachaad White is the receiving work. And if he's the goal line back, even if the only downgrade that you get to him outside of talent, but we don't care about talent so much from a fantasy perspective, is that he's not on a very good offense. He's going to lack some of the opportunity to score touchdowns. But if he's the guy that's getting those 2 things, the red zone work and the receiving work, even if it's on an okay to not good offense, it's going to vault him into that like mid to high end RB2 range. And the owner of a Rachaad White is going to be less, protective of trading him in a deal. They're going to be like, I can sell high on this guy, even though like there's reasons why he would be a guy that would be hovering in that 10, that 40-degree day and above range the rest of the season going forward. And with the Buccaneers, like they're 3-5 right now after this loss, but the team that's leading the NFC South is the Saints, so they're still in the playoff picture. They still have something to play for, especially like Baker Mayfield. Josh Jacobs gets right. Ramondre figures it out finally. And this may have been a predictive week. So, I mean, in this case, if I could take a Ramondre and flop him for a Rashad White, that would be something that I would be interested in doing. Mitchell gets it done. I was looking at some of the box score when we look at the box score with him. He had like a 60-yarder late and a 40-yarder late. Again, Justice Hill looks like he was doing it early. Like Gus Bus gets in on 5 carries, 2 touchdowns. I just don't know how predictive that's going to be going forward, but running back waivers are going to be so barren that a lot of people are going to have to go after him. Wide receivers, Tank Dell, I kind of saw this coming, or I think the CJ Stroud. I don't know if I said roll Tank Dell or not, but getting pieces of those high volume passing offenses and just rolling those guys out there. I think I said don't play him actually. Noah Brown, don't know that much about him. Definitely benefiting from Robert Woods being out. CD Lamb almost had a second touchdown, fumbled with on the 2-yard line late in the game. Amari Cooper, I saw the replay where it bounced off his helmet. Yeah. Tight ends, Dalton Schultz, again, pieces of those high volume passing offenses. It doesn't really matter. Cole Kmet, again, right there. And I've been talking about Cade Otton. That's not too surprising. And then there's Jake Ferguson down there. I know I said don't play Jono Smith, but he magically gets it done. But I don't want anything to do with that Falcons offense, especially going forward. And then there's my boy right there, Young Ho, getting it done. The McLaughlin, Tampa Bay, the idea is not bad offenses playing okay defenses, so the drives will stall and you get more opportunities for the field goals. Then like who was it? The Eagles kicker all the way down here at 4 points, Jake Elliott. As I was joking with my my co-manager, I just don't like guys that kick extra points. So being a part of good offenses gets you extra points. I don't want extra points for my kicker spot. I want field goals. And then of course defenses. The Colts defense this week, how predictive they would have been, this would have been a tough role. The Colts are not a very good defense. I think they give up the most points per game. On top of that, the Panthers look like they were doing better. There's 2 pick sixes. Those are not ever going to be predictive. We may be able to look at turnovers, and pressures. We're never going to be able to predict return touchdowns. The Browns, I mean, obviously, if you had them, the Raiders were actually predictive. I rolled them out in one league because the Giants are just really bad. The Ravens are just going to be a weekly start, even though this was a bad, on paper, bad matchup against the Seahawks. And then the Saints and the Chiefs are weekly rolls regardless. Packers, obviously, they were predictive against the Rams and Brett Rippon. Falcons, maybe. I have to think about that one. So anyway, taking a look at the box scores, I was already kind of looking at it, so I'd be ready to go. Chargers, Jets play tomorrow night. Titans, Steelers. My thoughts on this, I did watch this live. The Titans are very protective of Will Levis. There was a lot of plays that were design screens and whatnot. They still don't want it to let him get out there and rip it. And you can kind of see, like, on the final drive that the Titans had, they don't trust him to not turn the football over. And he had 3 plays on that last drive that were like, one was the interception that ended the game, but the other 2 were interceptions. So, like, how he needs to function, it looks like from last week to this week, is they need to get that running game going and then allow him to use his arm talent. And that's going to be harder based off of matchups. This was a game that maybe could have gone in that direction with the Steelers, but the Steelers were able to slow the game down, not make mistakes, which is kind of a little surprising, and keep themselves in it until Kenny Pickett could just magically outdo the bad coaching. And, George Pickens miraculously trying to throw the football game away. And then Derrick Henry, it looks like he's going to be like in that RB2 range, just volume RB2 for the rest of the season. Tajay Spears, that priority handcuff. And then from just the overall passing offense, Kyle Phillips, I don't think is going to be relevant. DeAndre Hopkins, 11 targets. That's kind of what we're chasing, kind of a surprise role. It looked like he was trending towards not playing, and then he was active. And then on the Pittsburgh side, Deontay Johnson, again, we're chasing those targets, 7 for 90, touchdown. And then what's his face? George Pickens could have gotten a touchdown, couldn't get his foot down. And then not Jalen Warren, Najee Harris and Jalen Warren are going to flirt with that like mid to low end RB2 rest of the way if they can kind of get this workload. Warren did look better, but I mean, it's going to be really hard to figure out who's going to fall in the end zone on a week-to-week basis. And again, this is on a not good offense, so that means there's going to be less scoring opportunities. All right. Dolphins Chiefs. So when I actually rolled myself out of bed to go check on this game, after making sure the actives were good, I was a little surprised because I rolled out Rashee Rice and I was like, well, at least he got me there with a touchdown. And then my other team, I have Travis Kelce, and I was like, what went on in this game? Kelce 3 for 14 and on 4 targets, and then Rice 2 for 17, 1 touchdown. And I think they both happened on like the first drive of the game. And then just who knows what was going on in this game. I didn't watch it. They put up 21 points in the first half. Dolphins come back in it, and then there's a fumble, and that's your game. So this is the game that's supposed to have like 50 combined points, and the two quarterbacks don't go over 200 yards in the game. Mostert gets it done on the ground. Tyreek Hill, comes back to earth. And I don't see Chase Claypool at all in this one. So yeah, I don't know how much I'm going to really be interested. Again, variable games, being played in Frankfurt, like just variable games, I tend to want to stay away from, even if on paper they say it's going to be like this high scoring. Well, I want pieces of. Let me mute that if I can. Vikings and the Falcons. So Jaron Hall got knocked out with a concussion. Josh Dobbs came back in, and this was ugly. I had my shares of Jordan Addison going out there with Puka Nacua, and he did most of this damage late. I think TJ Hawkinson may have been knocked out with a oblique injury or something like that. Cam Akers tore his Achilles again. That's just a tough break for him. And Josh Dobbs gets it done on the ground. So again, like I was talking about, he's going to be in the mix for, if not weekly starter, like he's going to be a priority streamer going forward. I don't know what's going to happen with Jaron Hall, especially if he was able to claw them back into the victory. And then on the other side, Taylor Heineke, I was watching this, like no Drake London, Jonnu Smith 5 for 100 and a touchdown. And then everything else is just like whatever. And I don't trust this offense. Bijan 11 carries for 51, and then he had an additional 2 for 8. But then you can just see that like Tyler Algier 12 for 39 gets the red zone touchdown, and he's involved with the passing game. Cordell Patterson, one target, 1 reception, and then another carry. I mean, it's just taking the little bit of opportunities being taken away, and that reminds me I was going to talk about this. So going back to the Dolphins-Chiefs game, you can see that I can catch this there. Hopefully that'll do it. So if you could see, I've been talking about this with Isaiah Pacheco. So he goes 16 for 66, and he's essentially only gets 1 target. But the touchdown, one of the touchdowns that the Chiefs got went to Jerick McKinnon. So Jerick McKinnon's been coming in the red zone, and he's been getting work. So he's been slowly but surely taking away opportunity from Isaiah Pacheco. So Isaiah Pacheco functioning as that RB2 when some of his work or his scores would indicate he's like maybe a low end RB1. He can't ever be there because this would be the week that, just based off of being on a good offense and having opportunities to score, that 1 touchdown pushes him above that 40-degree day. Or in this case, he has that sub 40-degree day because he just doesn't get that touchdown. And that's just going to, he does that in the money weeks, in the playoffs, and you're just eliminated. So again, I almost would rather have a Rachaad White than I would want an Isaiah Pacheco. All right. Cardinals, Browns. So Clayton Tune is just not an NFL caliber quarterback. I was kind of watching this. So no one to own. Dear Mercado was inactive. Keontae Ingram got the work, but like inefficient on 9 carries. So like I don't want anything to do with anybody. Probably next week Kyler's going to be back. So the entirety of this box score doesn't matter to me. On the Brown side, Deshaun Watson played, didn't look particularly good. Jerome Ford wasn't efficient. And again, some of this is him and some of this is the offense. Like, it's really difficult to continuously get caught in the backfield like 4 yards deep because you're bad at football. I don't know what's going on there, but he's less valuable because, again, getting the pieces, the correct pieces. Kareem Hunt is the goal line guy. He's going to get some of the passing work. So like he's probably on a week-to-week basis going to have a better floor, even though Jerome Ford, based off of the receiving work and just the overall volume, would have the higher upside. And then Pierre Strong did get in there a little bit, taking advantage of some of this stuff. David Njoku, low end tight end one, gets the touchdown, and Amari Cooper's touchdown was a deflection. But again, I don't care sometimes how the sausage is made when he gets me a 20-point week in half PPR. So, and especially with that defense, the Browns are going to have a lot of opportunities. Their defense is going to give the ball back to an offense. So all the offense has to be is not bad, and rolling out certain pieces. The priority pieces are always going to be tantalizing. So again, another guy in the NFL, and it's funny because like you look at a team like the Colts with Gardner Minshew and Anthony Richardson to start the season, and then a team like the Rams, and there are lots of teams that have like multiple quarterbacks that are with some coaching. Starter caliber, like the Falcons. Ritter is at least marginally a starter in the NFL. Taylor Heineke is marginally a starter in the NFL. And then a team like the Rams, where it's like, okay, they have Matt Stafford. Obviously, he's a solid NFL quarterback. But then, like, what do you have behind him? You have a Brett Rippon. Well, it's the same thing with the Cardinals. It's like, how do you not have some type of starting caliber NFL backup on your team? They exist. There are guys in the NFL that are backups that are good enough to be fringe starters, and yet you have a guy that you can't even run a functional offense with. I was watching this ticker on this game early, and they're just running on first, second, third down, trying to stay in the game because the Packers just have a bad offense also. And they just couldn't push anything down the field with Brett Rippon. They're not even attempting to because they don't trust him. And then Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I mean, luckily next week's their bye, and then Matthew Stafford, because he didn't go on IR, is expected to be back after that, and they may be able to salvage at least the idea of what they're going to do next year. At the end of the season. So like your Cooper Kupps and your Puka Nacua shares may not entirely be damaged. Outside the fact that like, if I own them, they may be guys I want to put together in a deal to have it to upgrade. So there's still a chance that coming out of the bye, if Matt Stafford, all indications that wheels will be up, that I might be able to get out from underneath them. But again, like Matt Stafford will be back, and looking at just the overall targets, they're both going to be like those high end wide receiver twos going forward. It's just unfortunate week that the Rams basically don't have a starting a backup who's a quality backup or starter at this point. And then Jordan Love, barely gets it done. Hey, look, there's an Aaron Jones sighting, one of the biggest busts. Finally gets it done. 20 for 73, 1 touchdown, very inefficient to start the game. Sort of got it going later in the game, and then he got involved with the passing game. Luke Musgrave finally gets home on a touchdown pass late. There's the Don Terrivian Wicks that I was talking about earlier. Free or 5th round pick, I think, from Virginia. I could actually go look him up. Yeah, 5th round pick from Virginia. And again, some of these guys aren't surprising, especially with Christian Watson being ineffective. I think he got hurt again in this game. And Romeo Doubs, they have some pieces. They got a lot of nice toys. Again, they just may not have the quarterback or the coaching to get it done. But again, a guy like Aaron Jones, if the owner of the Aaron Jones wants to try and get out from under him, he's maybe a guy that I would be interested in. Again, red zone work and receiving work, and there's going to be very few running backs that I can get pieces of later in the season. because there's very few running backs, period. Everybody wants quality running backs, and there aren't a lot of those left. So someone asked about Brian Robinson being rolled out there and how predictive that you're going to be able to guess an inefficient 18 for 63, and then he gets the red zone carry for the touchdown. And then this Jahan Dotson, I saw the replay on this. I don't know what was going on. You usually don't run two guys vertical shots that can basically touch hands down the field. So I don't know what's going on that. And then Mac Jones threw to Juju, and Juju, it deflected, and that ended your game. So this easily could have gone the other way to the Patriots. And then there's Ramondre, again, 64-yarder in a timeshare in a bad offense. That really hurts his value. Zeke 3 for 15, Ramondre 4 for 42. So again, if they were one guy, they'd be like Josh Jacobs. But they're two guys, and they're barely usable on a week-to-week basis, and you're hoping for an unpredictive big play to get you home. And then McLaurin continues that streak of just being the number one on a high volume passing offense, 45 attempts in this game. So he's going to give you that 40-degree day like every week, and then you're just hoping that you can you could get that high volume against maybe like a lesser passing defense, or he just gets home that week, and then there aren't a lot else to talk about. And like I was talking about with Demario Douglas, 7 targets. If they're not the right targets and they're in a bad offense, they just don't interest me. And then Jalen Reagor, 6 targets. If I could figure out or when I get the stats and I look at that, I'll be able to see like how, if they were air yards or if they were just like these less productive shorter plays that are higher probability but less valuable. Bears and Saints. So Bagent looked somewhat serviceable early, and then I guess he just threw a couple more interceptions and then fumbled the ball late. That ended the game. Because they were able to stay close. Deontay Foreman it's one of his weeks, but he didn't get in the end zone, and he's really not a receiving threat. Darnell Mooney is probably not going to be a thing this year, even though he had a fantasy relevant week. Cole Kmet again. Tight ends that are like the number 1 or number 2 options in their offense, 2 touchdowns. I mean, I'm just rolling him out every week, and you realize he's going to burn you, but like on the weeks that he doesn't burn you, he's going to win you a week. And then the volume with DJ Moore, hopefully that turns around. I think Justin Fields will be back next week. And I think that Bagent did barely get in there with a fantasy relevant week. Maybe not. Oh, there he is. Quarterback 9 overall in the week. So again, this is not real football. This is fantasy football. So like if he does 8 for 70 on the ground and 2 touchdowns, those interceptions hurt, but that 8 for 70 automatically is just going to vault him up almost into the top 10. So unless like Justin Herbert and Zach Wilson, really light it up, he's going to finish as a top 10 quarterback this week. So sometimes, like, again, knowing how the sausage is made just really doesn't matter. Seahawks, Ravens. And again, like I was kind of watching the box score. I don't know what was going on other than Geno wasn't playing very well, because the box score for the Ravens would indicate that like they weren't moving the ball very well. So I don't know what was going on. I did see that Zach Charbonnet out-snapped Kenneth Walker this week, and there may be some issues going on there. I am planning on rolling out Geno Smith next week against the Redskins, which should be in a good matchup. But after a performance like this, it's going to really make me think maybe I should go in a different direction. And then, again, like I was talking about, like this is just a ridiculous stat line to go and try and chase, which is 5 carries, 52 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I think they were of the shorter variety. Yeah, 4 yards and 3 yards. Like, you're just going to have a hard time trying to catch that lightning in a bottle on a week-to-week basis. And then Keaton Mitchell, like I imagine at this point, like because of the running back wasteland, that he's going to be interesting pickup. But that what more interesting to me is this Justice Hill 13 for 40. I imagine these might have been earlier in the game, when the game wasn't out of reach at this point. And then Mark Andrews, Odell Beckham scores his first touchdown. That came late to Tyler Huntley, so I'm not quite as interested in that. and it's just really going to be difficult. Zay Flowers, 1 target, 1 for 11. So it's going to be really difficult to try and predict any of these pieces in the Baltimore offense, even if they're good. Maybe you could roll out Gus Bus in that like flex RB2 range and just know that he's could get you a touchdown, and that's all you really need some weeks. Depending on what your build is from a lineup perspective. Buccaneers, Texans. So this is like the game. Baker Mayfield gets one of them done late to get. This was just ugly at first. You see that there was like 17-10 at halftime. Buccaneers with a 7-point lead, and then all the scoring in the second half, like 20 points by the Buccaneers, and what is that, 27 or 29 points by the Bucs, all in the second half. Just ridiculous. Rachaad White, again, like I'm not so concerned about the inefficient carries as much as I like the red zone work, and then the receiving work. And then there's Trey Palmer ticking up. Mike Evans still going to be sticking around. Cade Otton. And again, on the snap share, especially with the tight ends, I don't know how predictive he's ever going to be, because I imagine he's going to be the number 5 or so guy in this offense. Evans, Godwin, probably Rachaad White, then Trey Palmer, Otton. So it may be really hard. And then trying to predict teams that are like quote unquote bad at covering tight ends is usually kind of futile, because you're the way that that's calculated sometimes has less to do with the scheme of the defense and more against the guys that they're going up against. Like if teams have good outside receivers, then yeah, they're going to give up the middle of the field. If they're going up against like a Travis Kelce or a Mark Andrews, they might get burned, and that'll skew the stats. So I've tried chasing that before, and it's just not particularly as interesting as going, is this the number 1 or number 2 option in a high volume passing offense, and trying to chase that. Because on the other side, Dalton Schultz, and I know I may have said don't play Tank Dell, but I know I said play Dalton Schultz. And again, this is why, like, if he's the number 2 guy in a high volume passing offense, he's always going to have value. 10 for 130 on 11 targets. And then it's just, this may not be as predictive with who the number 1 is on a week to week basis, especially with Noah Brown getting in there. So like trying to guess if the Texans are just going to say, we can't throw or run the football, we're just going to throw for the rest of the year. That's what they should do. And I believe they have a pretty good schedule going forward when it comes to that. It's like click on the wrong thing. I was kind of looking at this before the game. Like the Bengals game will be a shootout. The Cardinals game, they should be able to take advantage of. Jaguars game could be a shootout. Broncos are hopefully still bad at football. The Jets, I might want to not be rolling CJ Stroud. The Titans are bad, but the game's going to be slow, even though the Texans play fast. The Browns may not be a good game to roll them out. Then I got the Titans again. This Colts game, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be in the fantasy championship. So like there's going to be at least a stretch with CJ Stroud that I could probably roll him out and expect like high volume passing. Especially if they can't run the football and they can get something like this done, something that I would be interested in. As I should finish talking about the receivers for the Texans. So I don't think Noah Brown is really going to be that interesting. He's 7th round pick out of 2017, probably in the game mostly because Robert Woods is out. So like not going to be a priority guy on the 6 targets. And again, chasing guys that are highly efficient is usually a pretty good sign that they will regress back to earth. So like Tank Dell doing the 11 targets, like he got through on just that, again, the opportunity. And that's something to be more interested in. And depending on how teams want to roll these 2 guys out, like depending on your build as a flex or wide receiver 2, you could probably get away with a guy like having a bad week versus everything. But yeah, I am interested and just rolling them out there and hopefully like catching that again. And it does look like they have that 4-game stretch where that could occur. Colts, Panthers. And I was talking about this, like, I don't know how much I would have predicted that the Colts were going to have a really good day against Bryce Young. And Gardner Minshew, again, didn't get it done, but there's reasons maybe behind that. And then Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor splitting time. That makes him less appealing overall than Michael Pittman. Again, these really inefficient high target games. And then Drew Ogletree, hanging around there. I don't think he's going to be a thing this year. But yeah, like the 2 return touchdowns get it done. And then Chuba Hubbard, they're probably not, the Panthers are probably not going to be able to run the football this year. Because again, now you see Miles Sanders being efficient on his 6 carries and getting 3 for 22 on through the air. And then Chuba 4 for 9, the inefficient ones. So there may be Miles Sanders may have a little bit more value in a certain role that they've changed. If he's being used as like the efficiency guy, and then Chuba Hubbard is more like the grinder, that would be interesting. And then Adam Thielen, the targets weren't there. I know I talked about Jonathan Mingo, just didn't take the turn this week. Tommy Tremble, I want to see the snaps on that. That would be interesting. And then Hayden Hurst somehow getting back in to the game after like that really bad week where he got benched because he basically dropped the football 2 for 54. But I probably don't want any pieces of that Panthers offense whatsoever if I can get away with it. Giants, Raiders. So Daniel Jones tore his ACL, and then Tommy DeVito came in and actually somewhat functioned as a quarterback with 2 interceptions. Saquon is just going to be that. I think I have him ranked in the range of like RB2. That's just because even if some of these guys are getting all this opportunity, this volume opportunity, the offense is going to be so bad that lacking the ability to score touchdowns is just going to hurt them to the extent that they just can't, they can't be trusted to do anything more than potentially give you that 40-degree day. Because I don't know when we could ever think about Saquon scoring another touchdown this year. And there's Daniel Bellinger. I did talk about this. As long as Waller's out, he's going to be a fringe starter. But again, the downgrade with Tommy DeVito, because Tyrod Taylor went on IR, probably not wanting anything to do with this passing game. Jalen Hyatt there. So I just don't want. It's going to be tough to do one way or another, but selling Saquon for somebody else is probably something that would be on my radar. And then Aiden O'Connell just efficient. Antonio Pierce does look like the players like playing for him. And from a fantasy perspective, there's parts to say that doesn't matter. But again, if the team is at least trying and putting out effort versus a team that's already shut down, it's easier to roll pieces of them out. And again, with the Raiders now being like 5-4, that means that they're still in line for the playoffs. So they could be putting out effort. So getting pieces of Josh Jacobs doing 26 for 98 for 2 touchdowns on an okay to not bad to not good offense versus, Saquon getting 16 for 90 on a bad offense. Josh Jacobs punches 2 of them in. Saquon's never going to sniff the goal line. And then Jacoby Myers, Vultures won. Trey Tucker, we were following this, so that's a little interesting. But overall, the rest of the passing work for the Raiders just isn't very, predictive at this point. And then Cowboys, Eagles. So again, this was when I saw the highlights. Dak hit Lamb on a fourth down play, like a yard short of the first down, and then Lamb fumbled it, and that was basically your game. Tony Pollard, like one of the biggest busts. I'd still be buying because again, good offense, getting this opportunity. So if I can get a Tony Pollard somehow, some way, he's going to have a greater opportunity towards scoring touchdowns as the season goes on. And that's more interesting to me than a guy that's going to just get all this empty calories from a fantasy perspective. So the Panthers, the Giants, Commanders, maybe not the Seahawks. They got the Eagles again. Buffalo's been really bad. The Dolphins and the Lions. So there is some opportunity for Pollard to bounce back on the second half of the season. I'll be going after my Pollard owners again this week to see how frustrated they are. I actually offered Koo and a bag of chips as a joke to the Pollard owner after trying to get him every single week and being turned down because they have to keep him for some god awful reason. And then Dak is going to be hovering around there as a high or a low end quarterback 1, mid quarterback 1 the rest of the season, as long as he can do stuff like this. And then there's the opportunity that'll turn into rushing touchdowns right there. 16 targets for CeeDee Lamb. So, another guy, I don't think you're going to be able to pry this guy away from his owner, but like those 16 targets, those are the things I like to look at. And then we were talking about Jake Ferguson earlier in the year, 10 targets, probably the number 2 there, it looks like. So Jake Ferguson would be an interesting guy to go after. I might go, float that out to the owner this week as a tight end too, going into playoffs. That's a guy that I would be looking for, especially because he's probably not anybody's tight end one. There are 6 sexier pieces to be rolling out. And then again, DeAndre Swift, same thing as Isaiah Pacheco. So Kenneth Gainwell gets in on a red zone carry, and that just doesn't go to DeAndre Swift. And then at least he gives you a little bit of passing this week. But, I mean, that's like a sub 40-degree day from like some teams are probably running him as like they're running back 1, probably better as a running back 2. A.J. Brown, again, the volumes, he gets it done with a touchdown. Devontae Smith gets it done with a touchdown. And then I was a little concerned with Jalen Hurts. He did get a rushing touchdown. I thought he was going to be hurt. He wasn't. So that's the value of those elite quarterbacks. So upgrading your sub-elite quarterbacks to your elite quarterbacks. And then figuring out ways to get some of these less predictive RB2s to better RB2s is something else I would be interested in doing. Or just like some of those volume-based wide receivers, again, great pieces, parts of okay offenses usually have more value than, great pieces on good offenses. And to explain this, with the Bengals victory today, so T. Higgins has his week, 8 for 110 on 9 targets, but then Jamar Chase does the 4 for 41 for 8 targets that we know is going to happen because it's been happening the last 2 years. And then the other interesting thing I saw today, so the Bengals have tight ends, Irv Smith, Drew Sample, and Tanner Hudson. If that was one guy, that would be a high-end tight end one, but it's not. It's 3 different guys. And then Joe Mixon gets the opportunity on a good offense. So, getting a hold of a Joe Mixon versus a Saquon. Joe Mixon is going to have more value because of his opportunity to score touchdowns. And then overpaying to get Joe Mixon versus getting Saquon off my roster. That's something I would be looking at doing. And again, elite quarterbacks, getting elite quarterbacks things with that rushing touchdown and that rushing floor. Stephon Diggs, 7 targets. Dalton Kincaid did have a really costly fumble in this game, 11 targets. And, you know what you're getting with Gabe Davis. And then this is the other thing with Uncle Lenny. So James Cook and Latavius Murray, they brought in Latavius Murray on the short yardage situations. James Cook ineffective on 6 for 20 and another 4 for 19. And this is where I would definitely see that Uncle Lenny could just come in and just eliminate a lot of the James Cook work and Latavius Murray altogether. He wasn't active today, but that would be something I would be looking at going forward, especially if someone drops them, or I could maybe pry them away, getting ready for the playoff push. So anyway, I think that's about it. I'll get the stuff out, and